The first time Sheriff Renaud Bardot saw a body drained clean, he told himself it was drugs or a ritual. Anything but the old stories his mother used to whisper over boiling gumbo. Stories about the night eaters. But after the third body turned up behind a shrimping dock, white as river pearls and marked with twin wounds at the throat, lying would have been worse than fear. On the night everything broke, a storm came down from the Gulf with the kind of rage only Louisiana skies could muster. Rain hammered the parish like nails. Lightning crawled along the clouds like glowing veins. Renaud was heading down Bayou Cane Road when he saw her. A woman standing in the middle of the highway, dress plastered to her skin, hair whipping like dark seaweed. He braked hard. The woman didn't flinch. When she lifted her face, her eyes gleamed in unnatural molasses red. "Sheriff Bardot," she said, pronouncing his name perfectly, like she'd practiced it for 100 years. His hand crept toward his holster. "You know me?" "I know everyone who bleeds in this parish." Her voice was melodic and old, Cajun French threaded through with something older. She moved with the ease of someone who didn't quite touch the ground. Renaud understood then what she was, and she seemed to know he knew. "They've forgotten the rules," she said, pacing slow circles around him as rain ran down her pale cheeks like tears. "The young ones, they take without asking, feed without restraint. You've met their handiwork." Renaud's jaw tightened. "You expect me to believe you aren't one of them?" She smiled, and the storm seemed to dim. "I am older, bound by old ways. This place," she gestured toward the cypress forests, the bayou waters, the lights of the parish glowing in the distance, "is not a hunting ground. It is a home, or it was. Why come to me? Because you keep the peace here, and so do I." Lightning struck a pecan tree nearby, splintering it in half. The woman didn't flinch. "A nest has formed beneath the old sugar mill," she continued. "If they grow stronger, they'll hollow out this parish like a rotten cypress. Help me, or watch your people die screaming." Renaud should have arrested her, should have called for backup, should have done a lot of things. Instead, he followed her through the flooded road, past the swamps swollen with the storm, toward the abandoned mill that loomed crooked above the bayou like a rusting tomb. Inside, the air smelled of iron and mold. The floorboards were slick with dirt and old blood. Then he heard them, the chittering whispers, the soft slither of limbs, the hungry breaths. Eyes glowed in the dark, dozens, maybe more. "You brought me right into a nest," Renaud muttered. "No," she stepped beside him, eyes burning. "I brought them the law." The night exploded. Creatures dropped from the rafters, thin, pale, fast as eels. Renaud emptied his entire magazine, each bullet echoing through the mill like thunder. The woman moved far quicker than any human, tearing through the younglings with razor grace. One lunge for Renaud's throat. He swung his baton, cracked its skull, then fired point blank. Blood sprayed the wall, black and oily. The storm raged outside, rattling the windows with each blast of wind. The floor shook. The smell of iron grew thick. The woman grabbed Renaud's arm. The eldest is coming. How many? One. Good, Renaud growled, loading a new clip. I'm getting real tired of being outnumbered tonight. It crawled from the shadows like a nightmare made of bones and sinew. Taller than any man, mouth bristling with crooked fangs, its voice scraping like rust on metal. Traitor, he hissed at the woman. You abandoned the covenant, she replied. You turned this parish into a slaughterhouse. You defend cattle. I defend balance. The creature lunged. She met it midair. They collided with a shock that shook dust from the beams. Renaud fired into its chest again and again until it screamed. The woman seized the creature by the jaw and tore. The monster collapsed into a heap of twitching limbs. Then the mill fell silent. The storm eased. Dawn crept over the bayou in golden streaks, revealing the destruction inside the mill. Renaud leaned against a beam, chest heaving. This stays between us. The woman nodded. Your people don't need to know what watches them from the cypress shadows, only that they're safe. And you? You leaving? She stepped toward the rising sun, though she stopped well before its light touched her skin. I keep the night, she said softly. You keep the day. Do I get a name? She smiled faintly. Call me Marias. She dissolved into the receding shadows of the mill, leaving only the echo of her presence and the scent of storm-soaked earth behind. In the months that followed, not a single drained body turned up in the parish. Folks said the sheriff had cracked down on the drug trade. Others whispered that the killer skipped town. Renaud knew better. Some nights, when the bayou mist curled thick and the frogs fell quiet, he felt another set of eyes watching the parish with him. Ancient, patient, and bound by a fragile shared peace. The night had its sheriff now, and so did the day. 3 months after the sugar mill fire, Sheriff Renaud Bardot found himself chasing a rumor so old it had grown moss. People claimed something was stalking Bayou Black Road, something that moved like smoke and left animals hollowed out along the tree line. Coyotes, hogs, even a bull. The parish hadn't seen anything like it since the nest was wiped out. Which meant one thing, and one thing only. A vampire without allegiance had entered the parish. Renaud crouched beside the bull's carcass, squinting at the bite marks under the rising sun. The animal was drained almost perfectly. Too clean for gators, too precise for poachers. Behind him, Deputy Lucien Lucky Romero paced, chewing gum so hard it popped like gunfire. "Sheriff, we reporting this as an animal attack or unusual predation?" Neither phrase meant anything. Neither would reassure the farmers who depended on these fields. Renaud wiped his brow. "Call it what you want, but tell folks to stay indoors after sundown." Lucky paused mid-chew. "This another one of those situations you won't explain but expect me to trust?" Renaud gave her a tired look. "Yeah." She sighed. "Then I'll trust it." He appreciated that more than he let on. But before he could say anything else, the wind shifted and carried with it a scent that hollowed out his chest. Wet earth. Old iron. Marias. He found her standing at the tree line, half hidden by Spanish moss, her eyes faintly glowing even in daylight shade. "Sheriff," she said softly, "you found the signs. You knew something was coming." "I felt it the night the storm broke," her expression darkened. "The elder you killed was not the oldest." Renaud's stomach dropped. "You telling me there's one older than that thing in the mill?" "Much older," she murmured. "Older than this parish. Older than the French. Older than the Choctaw. A wanderer. A covenant breaker." "You mean one of yours who doesn't follow your rules?" Her jaw tightened. "One who refuses any rules." "So what's it doing here?" Marias's voice dropped to a chill. "It feeds on power, territory, influence. Your parish is vulnerable after what happened at the mill. It smells opportunity." Renaud exhaled slowly. "Can you stop it?" Her silence was answer enough. Just after dusk, the call came in. "Missing teenage girl, last seen near the bayou." Normally, Renaud would have told himself it was just a runaway. But not tonight. When they found footprints, small ones, leading into the cypress swamp and then simply ending, his blood turned cold. Lucky whispered, "Sheriff, this feels wrong." "It is." He held back the truth. This was exactly how a covenant breaker hunted. Not fast, not messy, but carefully, choosing prey meant to lure the brave and foolish into the dark. Renaud looked toward the trees. "Get back to town," he told Lucky. "Nobody goes in here but me." "The hell, I'm leaving you alone again?" "Not a debate." She swallowed and nodded reluctantly and jogged back toward the cruisers. The moment she was gone, the swamp quieted as if holding its breath. And from behind him a voice whispered, "You shouldn't have come alone." Renaud spun, hand on his revolver, but it was only Marias, stepping from the shadows. She held no lantern. She needed none. "The girl's alive," she said, "for now." Renaud's pulse surged. "Then what are we waiting for?" Marias grabbed his arm. "You don't understand. This one doesn't just feed. It collects. It steals memory, voice, will. It hollowed out villages long before your country existed. What does it want with the teenager? It wants what you value. Before Renaud could ask what that meant, something slammed into him from the side. So fast he barely saw a blur of ash-gray skin and long, needle-thin limbs. He tumbled across the mud, rolled, and came up firing. The bullets sank into nothing but mist. The creature reformed 10 feet away, tall, skeletal, its mouth a vertical split lined with teeth. Its eyes were black spheres, reflecting nothing. Marius stepped between them, fangs exposed. Go back to the earth, Oathbreaker. The creature shrieked, a sound like metal warping under fire, and the cypress trees trembled. It spoke without moving its mouth. This land is mine now. The creature lunged. Marius met it with supernatural speed, the two blurring through the swamp like streaks of shadow. Renaud sprinted toward the screams he heard deeper in the trees. The girl, he recognized her voice, alive and terrified. Behind him, the monsters collided again and again, shaking loose branches, splashing through knee-deep water. Renaud found the girl bound in black moss that writhed like a living rope. He tore at it with shaking hands. "You're okay," he said breathlessly. "You're okay." But her eyes, they were hollowed out, empty, staring right through him. Not dead, not alive, just vacant. The thing had started feeding. He lifted her carefully. "We're getting you home." A shadow slid across the water. The covenant breaker. It materialized beside him, smiling with its horrific vertical mouth. "She is mine." Renaud raised his gun, but a hand shot out of the darkness and grabbed the creature by the throat. "Marius," she hissed, "run!" Renaud ran. Hours later, the girl safe in an ambulance, Renaud stood alone at the edge of Bayou Black, listening to the night breathe. Marius emerged from the water, covered in ash blood. Her eyes dim, her movements slow. "You hurt?" he asked. "Yes." "You dying?" "No." Then a pause. "Not tonight." Renaud stepped closer. "You saved her." Marius studied him with an unreadable expression. "I told you, we keep the peace together, night and day." Something unspoken passed between them. Trust, maybe? Or something dangerously close to kinship. "Is the covenant breaker dead?" Renaud asked. Marius looked toward the deeper swamp, her expression somber. "No, it cannot die easily, and now it knows your name." Renaud exhaled. "Great." Marius turned away. "You should rest. Tomorrow we plan." "Plan for what?" Her eyes glowed faintly as she vanished into the shadows. "War." The covenant breaker did not strike for several nights. That was almost worse than an attack. Sheriff Renaud Bardot felt the waiting everywhere. In the hush of the bayou after dusk, in the tremor of the trees, in the way people flinched when dogs barked at nothing. The parish felt haunted. Something was coming. Everyone sensed it. Only he and Marius knew what it was. On the fourth night, Renaud got a call from the volunteer fire chief. No flames, the chief said, but every light on the baptism bridge is shattered. Street lamps, headlights, even flashlights. People who tried crossing, they say something swallowed the light. Renaud grabbed his keys. As he reached his cruiser, a shape drifted down from a cypress branch. Marius, silent as a falling leaf. "It's marking territory," she said. Renaud nodded grimly. "Thought so. Tonight will not be quiet." He hated how calmly she said that, like she was telling him the weather. Baptism Bridge arched over a wide swill of dark water where moonlight rarely lingered. Tonight, there was no moonlight anyway. The lights were indeed shattered. Bulbs burst outward, as if struck from inside. Renaud crouched beside the remains. "Why break the lights?" "Because it feeds in darkness," Marius whispered. "It grows in it, and it wants more." The wind shifted, cold and damp as grave breath. Then they heard it. Not a scream, not a howl. A wet, dragging, pulling sound. Something big was crossing under the bridge. Renaud reached for his gun. "Are we going down there?" Marius shook her head. "It's coming up." The creature rose like a column of smoke and bone, unfolding into its full height with a series of sickening cracks. Tonight, it wore a body, something resembling human, stitched together from what must have been stolen parts. A man's torso, a woman's arms, a face that was almost beautiful except for the black eyes and the mouth that split vertically from chin to throat. It looked at Renaud. "Daykeeper." Renaud felt a cold pressure in his skull, thoughts slipping sideways. "Stay out of my head." Marius stepped in front of him. "You overreach." The creature tilted its head. "He is bound to you. That is weakness." Marius bared her fangs. "Touch him, and you find out what I truly am." The creature hissed, and the world flickered. Lights dying, shadows stretching unnaturally long. And from the water below, more shapes rose. 7, maybe 8. Renaud's voice cracked. "There's more." "They are at spawn," Marius said. "Half-born, half-hungry. We cannot let them root." Renaud steadied his gun. "Then let's do this." The first spawn lunged, limbs like whipcord. Renaud fired 3 shots. 1 hit the throat, 2 hit the chest. It staggered, shrieked, then Marius tore its head clean off. Another came scrambling up the rail. Renaud grabbed it by the jaw and slammed it onto the concrete, firing through its skull. 2 more crawled up the sides like spiders, moving too fast for human sight. Marius met them mid-leap, spinning with predatory grace, ripping one apart and kicking the other into the water with a splash like a body hitting pavement. "They're getting stronger," Renaud said between breaths. "Because their maker is," Marius answered. And that maker now stepped onto the bridge. Its black eyes fixed on them both. "Give me the parish," it whispered. "Give me the lawkeeper. Give me the night keeper, and I will spare the rest. Not happening, Renaud said. Marius didn't speak. She simply braced. And then the creatures attacked. It moved faster than before, faster than Marius. It hit her with such force that she skidded across the bridge, cracking concrete, blood splattering in the arc. Renaud sprinted toward her, firing at the creature to slow it down. His bullets barely slowed it, but they angered it. It turned its attention to him. Renaud fired again, emptied the whole magazine. The creature blurred, appearing right in front of him. Its hand shot out and wrapped around his throat. His vision dimmed, his lungs burned. He clawed at its arms. Useless. Then a voice cut the dark. Enough. Marius rose, limping, bloodied, but burning with cold fury. She spoke in a language older than Cajun French, older than the swamp. Words heavy with power, forbidden power. The creature recoiled. You dare, it hissed, use the old commands? Marius's voice cracked from strain, but she kept speaking. Renaud dropped to his knees, gasping as the creature's grip loosened. The covenant breaker shrieked, its body spasming, limbs bending in unnatural angles. But the power cost Marius dearly. Renaud saw her stumble, saw her pale, saw her knees buckle. He grabbed her before she fell. Marius, what did you do? She whispered against his shoulder. I broke a rule. The covenant breaker, contorted and steaming as though burned, staggered backward. It split into smoke and fled across the water, leaving its dead spawn behind. Renaud stared at it. Did we win? No, Marius whispered. We survived. She leaned heavily on him. He realized she was trembling. You okay? He asked, voice softening without meaning to. No. Then after a hesitation, but I will be. Renaud squeezed her shoulder. What now? Marius looked toward the black water. It will return with more. It will call ancient things. And now that I used forbidden power, she met his eyes, hers dimmer than he'd ever seen. The other night clans will come. Renaud swallowed. As enemies? Some. She looked toward the silent trees. And some as allies. And the covenant breaker? She stared into the water as if she could still see it fleeing. It will not stop until one of us is dead. Renaud nodded slowly. Then we finish this. Marius gave a faint, exhausted smile. Yes, Daykeeper. War has come to Terrebonne Parish, and the bayou will choose a side. The night after the battle on Baptism Bridge, the parish felt wrong. Not quieter, not louder, just watched. Sheriff Renaud Bardot barely slept. Even when he did, he dreamed of black water rising and of a voice whispering from beneath it. He woke before dawn with sweat running down his spine. War was here, but he hadn't expected armies. Just after sunrise, Marius appeared in his backyard. not materializing from shadows, not emerging from mist, but simply there, sitting at his porch table like she'd been waiting for hours. She looked almost human this morning. Almost. "You should not be alone today," she said. Renaud rubbed his eyes. "Why? More activity last night?" "Not activity." Her gaze drifted toward the roads leading out of town. "Visitors. The clans are coming." Renaud blinked. "You mean more like you?" "No," she said. "None like me." Her eyes darkened. "And not all will want peace." They came separately, as if coordinated, but pretending otherwise. The Cypress Court. Tribe vampires. Just outside town, near the tribal center, a group stood waiting when Renaud drove up. 3 figures wearing ceremonial beadwork and toughened leather, their skin dark and their eyes sharp, gleaming amber in the morning shade. Their leader, a tall woman named Diana, spoke first. "We smelled the covenant breaker from the eastern wind," she said. "We come to see if your nightkeeper still honors the old balance." Marias bowed her head. "I do." Ayana's gaze slid to Renaud. "And you stand with her?" Renaud nodded. "I do." Ayana accepted this without comment, which somehow made Renaud more nervous. The Creole Ancients. At noon, the abandoned Saint Etienne plantation echoed with footsteps. Slow, deliberate, and elegant. The Creole Ancients arrived in a black carriage drawn by 2 horses that did not breathe. 3 figures stepped out, dressed in immaculate 19th century fashion, faces smooth as polished marble. Their spokesman, Etienne Marchand, bowed to Marias. "Our sister," he purred. "Long has the bayou whispered your name. We feared you had forsaken us." "I forsook nothing," Marias said. The oath breaker forced my hand. Etienne's lips curled faintly. "Then let us help you sever his." Renaud didn't trust the way that Etienne's eyes lingered on him. They were calculating. Baton Rouge Night Guard, unofficial but dangerous. Just before sundown, 3 motorcycles roared into Terrebonne like a wall of thunder. Black helmets, black jackets, red eyes gleaming beneath visors. City vampires, warriors. Their leader, a half-tattooed brute named Rook, spit on the street the moment he arrived. "We're not here for diplomacy," Rook growled. "We're here because that thing kills territory, and if it takes this parish, it'll come for ours." Marias spoke softly. "Stand down, Rook." "Make me," he said. Ayana stepped between them. "Enough. We need unity, not chest beating." Rook snarled but backed off. Barely. Marias led them all. The Cypress Court, the Creole Ancients, the Baton Rouge Night Guard, and Renaud, to an open stretch of marshland lit only by fireflies and the last orange glow of sunset. It was the largest gathering of vampire clans Terrebonne had seen in a century. Renaud felt like the lone human in a room full of coiled serpents. Marias addressed them. "The covenant breaker grows stronger," she said. "I felt it reach into the river last night. It calls to older things." Ayana nodded grimly. "The river spirits stir." Etienne added, "It seeks dominion, parish by parish. Rook cracked his knuckles. Then we kill it before it grows legs. Mariah shook her head. It cannot be killed easily. Not by numbers. Not by strength alone. Then how? Renaud asked. Mariah turned to him. Her eyes softened in a way none of the others noticed. It must be bound first. The clans murmured. Even the Creole ancients looked uneasy. Bound by what? Renaud asked. Mariah stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. By the ones it hurts. Renaud's blood went cold. Meaning me? And me, she said. Her voice trembled. The covenant breaker has chosen us as opposites, its reflections. We are its anchors. Only together can we bind it. Renaud exhaled. And if we don't? The fireflies dimmed. The marsh seemed to hold its breath. Mariah answered quietly. Then Terrebonne Parish will fall. Then Louisiana. Then the Mississippi Valley. And eventually, the whole night. Rook cracked his neck. So when do we start? Mariah looked toward the tree line. Tonight. A low rumble rolled across the water, too deep to be thunder, too alive to be the wind. The fireflies vanished. The marsh turned still. Ayana whispered, "It's close." Etienne's pupils dilated to pitch black. Very close. Rook revved one of the motorcycles. Good. Let it come. But Mariah shook her head. No, she whispered. It's not coming for us. She turned to Renaud. Her eyes were suddenly full of fear. It's coming for you. And then the trees exploded. Something enormous and wrong tore out of the swamp, lunging straight for Renaud, faster than a nightmare, faster than thought. Mariah and Ayana yelled at the same moment. Renaud barely had time to draw his gun. The covenant breaker was upon him. The thing came out of the trees like a wave of bones and smoke. Renaud didn't even see its face at first. Only the impact, the shock, the way the world spun as something massive slammed him backward into the marsh mud. His gun flew somewhere into the reeds. His breath vanished. His ribs screamed. And then the creature's voice crawled into his mind. Found you. Mariah blurred into motion, faster than lightning, faster than rage. She slammed into the covenant breaker's side, ripping it away from Renaud with a sound like tearing wet paper. The creature twisted, spider-like, landing on all fours. Ayana and the cypress corp drew obsidian blades carved from river stone. They approached cautiously, chanting under their breath, words that seemed to make the air crackle. Rook and the Baton Rouge Guard revved their bikes again, using the engine's roar to disrupt the creature's senses. Two of them hurled chain hooks, crackling with some kind of static. Etienne and the other Creole ancients moved like dancers, slow but impossibly precise. They murmured old Creole incantations that bent the shadows. The swamp became a battlefield of old magic, new violence, and feral hunger. Still, the covenant breaker didn't retreat. It stood taller, stronger, and its eyes fixed on Renaud. Daykeeper, you belong to me. Renaud staggered upright, spitting mud, one hand clutching his bruised ribs. He didn't have a weapon, but he had something better. Resolve. "You want me?" he shouted hoarsely. "Come take me." Marius's head jerked toward him. "Renaud, don't provoke." Too late. The creature lunged. Iana's blade slashed its side. Rook smashed a chain into its jaw. Etienne whispered a curse that made its limbs jerk like a broken marionette. But still it barreled toward Renaud. Marius reached him first, shoving him aside so hard he hit the ground again. She landed in front of him, claws out, fangs long, eyes burning white hot. "Stay," she commanded. He listened, for once. The covenant breaker rose to its full height, twice Marius's size, skeletal, dripping black ichor that steamed as it hit the water. Marius spoke in that ancient forbidden tongue again. The air vibrated. The marsh grass bowed. The clan stepped back instinctively. Even the covenant breaker paused. "You dare bind me?" it hissed. "I dare stop you," Marius said. "You are alone." "No," she said simply, "not anymore." She reached behind her without looking. Her fingers found Renaud's hand. The moment their skin touched, the swamp shook. Power exploded outward in a ripple that sent water spraying, lights flickering, and shadows fleeing. The covenant breaker recoiled. Iana gasped, "They've linked." Etienne whispered, like the old myths. Rook yelled, "Then hold that link. Don't let go." Renaud had no idea what he was doing, but Marius did, and he trusted her. Marius lifted their joined hands, speaking words that vibrated through flesh and bone. Renaud felt something tug at him, deep, ancient, instinctive, like roots wrapping around his spine, like the bayou itself pulling him into its memory. He tightened his grip on her. "Tell me what to do," he whispered. "Stay with me. Always." The covenant breaker shrieked, a sound of rage and terror, and launched itself at them. But this time it hit a wall of force that wasn't made of magic alone. It was made of them. Renaud felt Marius' strength pour through him like cold fire. She felt his will anchor her like bedrock. Their connection wasn't romantic, wasn't supernatural, wasn't even logical. It was something older, a bond of keepers, day and night, law and shadow, balance and darkness. Together they held the creature back. Iana and her tribe chanted, weaving a circle of river salt and bone. Etienne's clan traced sigils in the air. Rook slammed metal stakes into the ground to hold the creature in place. The swamp glowed. The water boiled. The air turned electric. Marius cried out, "Now, Renaud, bind it." "How?" he shouted. "Say its name." "I don't know its—" Then he heard it, in the back of his mind, a whisper, a true name, ancient and foul. He spoke it aloud, and the swamp screamed. The covenant breaker convulsed, all limbs bending, twisting, collapsing inward. Its mouth tore open into a vertical maw as it shrieked. Black ichor gushed. Shadows bled. Its form collapsed, pulling into a swirling vortex of darkness, attempting to flee back into the water. But it couldn't. It was bound. Moraeus shouted the final word. The clans echoed it. A surge of light, not sunlight, but something older, shot through the marsh. The creature's body imploded into ash and smoke. A final wail rattled the cypress trees. And then silence. Total, absolute silence. The covenant breaker was gone. Or at least, bound somewhere it could not reach them. For now. Renaud collapsed to his knees, chest heaving. Moraeus knelt beside him, her hand still wrapped in his. Her voice was soft, almost human. We did it. Renaud managed a breathless smile. Yeah, we damn well did. Ayanna approached first. She gave a respectful nod. Balance is restored for tonight. Etienne smiled thinly. History will remember this. Rook spat into the mud. Drinks on me. The clans dispersed into darkness, leaving the swamp to settle. Finally, Moraeus looked at Renaud. You should rest, she whispered. You look worse than me, he said. She almost smiled. Daykeeper, the war isn't over. Binding is not the same as killing. Renaud groaned. Of course it isn't. Moraeus rose, but tonight Terrebonne lives. And for the first time, she sounded proud. She vanished into the shadows. Renaud lay back in the marsh grass and stared at the stars until the sun threatened the horizon. The sun came up over Bayou Cordeaux like a slow spill of gold, burning away the mist one ragged piece at a time. But it didn't touch Renaud for a good long while. He woke in his truck, boots still muddy, shirt torn, badge half bent. He didn't remember driving back to the station. He didn't remember getting in the truck at all. He did remember the creature's last scream, and Marius's hand in his. That stuck with him like a tattoo under the skin. He rubbed his face. You're losing it, Renaud. But the world had other ideas. Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office sat small and squat between a seafood market and a boarded-up laundromat. Usually it smelled like old paper, bad coffee, and humidity. This morning, it smelled like fear. Deputy Simone Lebeau met him at the door, eyes wide. Sheriff, something's wrong with the evidence room. He frowned. What kind of wrong? You need to see it. That was never a good sentence in his experience. The evidence room was cold. Not chilly, not drafty. Cold. Renaud's breath fogged the moment he stepped inside. Simone pointed at the back wall. The concrete had cracked, hairline fractures at first glance, but branching out like roots or lightning bolts. In the center of the wall, something had burned a symbol into the stone. A spiral, incomplete, interrupted, as if something had tried to form but couldn't finish. Renaud stiffened. That's a binding glyph. Simone stared at him. A what? He didn't answer. His skin crawled with recognition. He'd seen the same shape pulsing under the swamp water when the clans held the Covenant Breaker down. It was the mark of something trapped, something fighting to get loose. "Sheriff," Simone whispered, "you're scaring me." He wished he could lie. "It's nothing," he said. "Probably just some chemical damage." The fluorescent lights flickered overhead. The glyph pulsed once, like a heartbeat. Simone squeaked and backed into the hall. Renaud muttered, "God damn it." The creature was bound, but not nearly bound enough. He left the station, drove until city noise turned into cicadas and marsh wind, and parked beneath a cypress older than any living person in Terrebonne. "All right," he said out loud. "If you're out there, I need you." He waited. Nothing. "Marius," he said louder. "It's happening again." The wind shifted. A ripple spread in the bayou water, and then her voice drifted out of the shade of the trees. "Tell me what you saw." She stepped into view, dark coat trailing behind her, eyes reflecting daylight in a way no humans ever could. She looked worse than last night. Pale, drawn, like binding the creature had cost her something she hadn't yet recovered. Renaud swallowed. "There's a mark at the station, a piece of a spiral." Marius froze completely. Even her shadow stopped moving. "Describe it." When he did, she closed her eyes. "That is not the creature," she said. "That is its echo." Renaud rubbed his jaw. "In English, please?" "When a covenant breaker is bound, its soul tears. Fragments try to return to it, to rebuild it." He didn't like that wording at all. "You mean it's regenerating?" "No," she opened her eyes. "Worse." Marius stepped close, lowering her voice. "Something is calling to it, something old, something we don't have a name for." Renaud's stomach dropped. The clans didn't mention that. "They don't know," her jaw tightened. "I didn't know until now." A ripple of dread moved through him. "So what's the plan?" Marius looked toward the swamp, gaze distant. "We find whatever is calling to the bound creature, and we stop it before it wakes something far bigger than a covenant breaker." Renaud sighed heavily. "Just once, I'd love for the danger to be smaller than expected." Marius actually smiled. Barely, like a flicker of flame. "I'll try to find the caller. You watch the glyph. If it changes, contact me immediately." He nodded. "Okay. How will I contact you?" She stepped closer. "You won't. I'll feel it through the bond." That word again. Bond. It made something twist in his chest. She melted back into the trees, shadows swallowing her whole. Renaud returned to the evidence room alone. Simone refused to come back inside, which was probably smart. He stared at the spiral on the wall. It looked darker now, sharper, almost thicker. He stepped closer. The concrete trembled under his palm. Then his phone rang. He jumped so hard he smacked his elbow. Caller ID, private number. He answered. "Renaud." Static. A faint rasp. Then, "Sheriff." His blood went cold. He knew that voice. He'd heard it inside his skull in the swamp. You bound me, but not tightly enough. Renaud froze, and the voice hissed, and I remember your name. The phone went dead. A crack spread across the glyph like a spreading grin. Renaud whispered, Moraeus, where the hell are you?